Monica, what do you got going on with your new PTR? Follow Asian digital performers now.
Now she changed to a twins picture.
Because it's my birthday month and it's Gemini, so we have two faces. So I thought I should
Oh.
symbolically tell everybody that.
Yeah. So it's Monica's birthday, so please follow her and her
Birthday
what?
month.
Asian
It's like an
Asian
Indian
digital
wedding. It goes
superwoman.
on for a whole month.
Yep.
Tyler, we have nothing to celebrate. It's so depressing.
You can come here and celebrate with us
No,
every day,
we,
two
we
times a day.
actually there is something worth celebrating today. We have to recognize Mr. Justin Higgins absolutely killed it
Oh
on
yes.
Clubhouse.
Yay!
Awesome.
Oh
That was
my
fantastic.
And he didn't get blocked by everyone. He's
And he
still here.
exactly.
Yep. Is
Well
he there,
done, sir.
Justin?
Are
Yeah.
you
He's
actually
not
here,
there.
What did he
Justin?
do?
Thank you. No,
Congratulations, Justin.
yes, as Tyler put it, I thought I was going to be taking a week vacation
Yeah.
from tech news around the world,
But
but
Paul
I,
was
I
there.
survived.
Clubhouse Paul was there.
A most stressful thing ever, but it was a great event. Tyler, he contributed a great question to the experts. I thought that the event,
Yes.
obviously, I'm biased, but I thought it represented some of the best of what Clubhouse can be,
Oh,
discussing
totally.
Yes.
Tyler, we were discussing an active war zone with literally the world's foremost negotiators from that conflict. And then at the end there, we had people on the ground in Gaza, in Israel, commenting in a respectful manner. And I don't know about you, Tyler, but I came away humbled and
Yeah.
much more educated on what
Oh,
is going on. So
totally.
I wanted to thank you for your
Stop.
contributions.
I sent you $20, man. What are you talking about?
You made me cringe so hard, but then I got like $200. So
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I think one of the, I don't want to speak out of turn. I'll tell you offline. But one person that sent me money was kind of funny.
Well deserved, man. That's if ever there was a reason for the tip jar, that room exemplified it. And I said this before. I feel vindicated. I told you, everyone in this room, as everyone's walking in, I'll just take a minute to say, I said before, I'll say it again. Justin is the gateway to being on the ground in DC, geographically and professionally. He plays an incredibly important role here in Clubhouse as the bridge to onboard the American politicians and members of Congress, which he has two scheduled for this week, if I recall correctly. And if those go anything like his event yesterday, it will be a matter of no time before the household names are joining us in Clubhouse due to Justin. So he had over 2,000 folks show up for his fantastic room. Actually, on the merits, it wasn't even due to the traditional, strategies of getting people with lots of followers on stage. It was pure. It was honestly on its own merits. Paul was in the audience, wasn't on stage. The people on stage didn't have huge followings, honestly, like in the normal traditional style of boosting a
You
room.
had the second most following.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't consider myself a high follower by any means. So that's what I'm saying. It was totally legit earned 2,000 followers, 2,000 plus followers in the room. Not hacked, not gamed,
And
like
it grew,
legit.
right? Justin,
Yes.
it grew. So it wasn't one of those rooms where it starts high because, you get, a million person follower on there or something, like
Right.
four or five of them.
Right.
Starts high and then goes down. It
It
actually, I saw
stayed
it
the whole
grow.
time. It stayed.
Yeah, and
He had three speakers. The first speaker had to leave on time, as was committed, totally expected, with high caliber speakers. The other speaker stayed like 10 minutes over. The next speaker stayed like 20 minutes over. The 2,000 people, it only went down about 100 people, like even after all three speakers had left. To give you
2,100 to
yeah,
2,000.
yeah.
Actually, I even give a Justin timestamp. Every 2 minutes, it increased by 100, 100, 100, 100.
But this is my
It goes
point.
up.
Was that mean that can only be done when the content is so incredibly extremely high.
Yes.
And my point is, even after the speakers left, the audience was still there, which tells
Yep.
you that it was about the content and the space and the conversation, and it was fantastic. It was a watermark moment for Clubhouse, but even more exciting, it's a foreshadowing of something potentially even bigger to come, which I very proudly had predicted. And that's why I'm saying, and I'm reiterating, ladies and gentlemen, follow Justin Higgins, because he singularly could be an absolute game changer for this app of Clubhouse and this format. This format has incredible potential, which he stands as on the bridge to unlock. And it's about us showing up when he's doing his events and voting with our feet, because it's very simple. As somebody who organizes events for many years now, he sends out speaker invites, and the people receiving those speaker invites, the first thought in their mind is, how many people are going to be there, and how serious is this? What's the size of these rooms, and how much exposure am I going to get? Right. So that number is dictated by us and our ability to invite our friends to join those rooms. And by golly, is the content worth it? I'm just telling you, and I would not be saying this if it wasn't 100% true. The room that he did yesterday warrants me. I now have a new realization. When I go into Justin's rooms from now on, the first thing I'm going to do is get the link to the room and tweet it to my 10,000 plus Twitter followers, and with an invite code to Clubhouse if need be, because that's how good the room was. So that's what it's about.
You're a gentleman and a scholar, and I am humbled that you would say that. And just for your I'll plug a couple events later, but for your edification and your followers' edification, the format we do is a 20-30 minute interview where I conduct it, and then we go to general Q&A. But from being in tech news around the world and listening to how you moderate and Cal moderates these rooms, I noticed that maybe the most magical part of Clubhouse is people getting to share their opinions, their own expertise, their questions, their fears, their hopes, their anger at a situation, their elation. And what we did was we added at the end of it.
It was so
now
good.
we do a focus group for every single room. So if you're listening and you absolutely hate what the speaker is saying, as long as you're respectful, you can get up on stage, and we took a page out of Tyler's and Kyle's book, and we basically ask you for your thoughts, and then we popcorn around a little bit. So I wanted to thank Tyler, and again, helping me offline when I have questions about this app. You've always been here because, folks, Tyler and Kyle, you can do one of two things when you're trying to grow something. Focus on growing your own slice of the pie, and that kind of sets up a zero-sum game, because as your slice of the pie gets bigger, the other slices get smaller. Or you can take an approach where you focus on growing the whole pie. And folks like Tyler and Kyle have reached out to me. They've given me advice. They've helped me be on their stage and learn a lot. And they're trying to grow the whole pie of Clubhouse. So keep that in mind. And if you want to send anybody money, it's these two guys who are doing
I don't think you can't. By the way, you can't on Clubhouse for us. You can for Justin, as I did yesterday. First person I've ever sent money to.
Yeah, just send it to Justin. Just send it to Justin. It's fine. It's fine. And he'll send it to us. It's all good.
I just felt like I knew you were going to lunch afterwards. I was like, I want lunch on me, man. Like, go celebrate and have a beautiful lunch, and I hope that you did. And I was inspired, man. I came out of that room thinking, "Whoo, I got to up my game now," because that's honestly what I felt, and in the best possible way. I felt like we got to up our game, and due to, I realized the beauty of a really good adding really good interviews. And now that's the key by the way, with this room particularly, is if we get this room consistently, now that the Android folks are, well, by the way, let's just start with the first headline of the day. Clubhouse now going live tomorrow in Russia, Japan, and a couple other countries, and going everywhere globally by Friday. And what that should mean is great for in terms
of Clubhouse Android, right?
Clubhouse Android, right? And that should effectively nearly double the audience, the foot traffic within Clubhouse. and perhaps more, because you consider that Android in India alone is 97% of India, and anyway, but it should about double the footfall in Clubhouse over the next week or two. And if that's true, that means we'll go from about 350 to about 700 audience, optimistically. And if that's true, that means then I can start inviting in my B-list tech celebrity friends that have spoken at my events over the years. I won't, and then they themselves will add another few hundred followers to the room just by having their names as part of the title of the rooms, like tech news around the world with so and so, and then
Yeah.
then we can
Then it
add.
all starts, right?
Yeah, then
We
then
we get all our lists coming out.
yeah, but that also helps Clubhouse in a way, because one of the things that attracted Clubhouse is when they had notable tech CEOs joining the rooms, and that's why other people start to sign up, and it's a snowball and it grows the pie. To Justin's point, which is great, fantastic, and Justin will do the same when he brings when if his quality of guests continue to rise, because more people are coming in and people are pinging in their friends to and he's sending out speaker invites, then the whole pie starts growing. Because if Amy Klobuchar comes in here, people will sign up for Clubhouse just to come in and listen to that. And if eventually he get Bernie Sanders or Mitt Romney and whoever, that is all totally within reason as we get into these midterm elections starting. The ramp up for that starts in about a year, so it's not that far away, honestly. And they like to start grooming a little bit early and canvassing and hitting the grass.
Wait till you start doing
Do you guys
CEO
have
plus
the ability
politician.
to change titles in the middle of ongoing rooms? Like
No,
if someone pops in,
No,
not
no.
yet. But you're right, Froz. That would be fantastic. But I imagine they might do that eventually, because Twitter Spaces does do that. Anywho,
Anna,
yeah.
would you consider hosting some welcome rooms? Because I do feel that does contribute to people's experience. And if they have a good experience, they're likely to stay. A lot of people are doing that. So would you consider that? Because I'd be happy to help.
How do you mean? Well, by the way, do you want to, Shirley? Do you want to talk about a future special guest we might have here, or is this a little? We'll wait on that.
It's a little bit premature,
I agree. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But if you'd like to talk about that, I'd be happy to help. I'm sure Salvini will happily chip in as well. Sorry, Salvini, but yeah.
The challenge with welcome rooms is that I'm not a big fan. Me personally, I don't know about Tyler. I'm not a big fan of welcome rooms with no content. So
Oh, I
this is
see.
essentially the welcome room,
I
No,
right?
no.
Yeah.
I see what you
Oh
mean.
no, it's a Clubhouse welcome room. So helping people get the most out of, because a lot of people don't understand the way Clubhouse works, and they don't follow people, expecting people to follow them and follow back. And actually, that leads to a poor experience for the user. So a lot of them just don't come back. Those who get the good information on arrival then understand, okay, if I follow this person, I can find these rooms. So I think that really does make a difference to the experience, and they do come back
The
based
on
on the
Yeah,
experience.
it's like a really nice onboarding experience. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
Abraxas used to do them. I don't know if he still does. He did when I
He still
joined.
does,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I think he does them for everybody. So I don't know if that's.
And
Yeah.
the
Anyway.
other thing is that Android have less features, right? So they need to be told about what is going to come in the future, because Paul Davidson was talking about feature parity. So just letting them know that, yeah, you won't have these features yet. That does make a difference. So I think that we can add value to newcomers and just, yeah, helping them get a better experience all around.
Yep. It'll all. We'll get there. Keep the ship sailing steady. And anyway, I'm really looking forward to Justin's next room already. And I did come out feeling proud of him, because I know he was nervous. He was talking with Francine. He was on stage here, and Francine was on stage. We were talking about just, he was nervous, understandably nervous. What an incredibly difficult topic. I challenge you to think of a more challenging topic this week, especially.
I'll just make a comment on that. I saw the room and I saw how rapidly it was growing. I saw it when it started, and Justin, I have to hand it to you, man. How you kept control of that room, I can only imagine. I was afraid to come into the room.
Right.
I particularly did not come into the room, one, because of the topic, because I have friends on both sides, and you've heard some of my views on the matter. And two, because of the size it was, because I thought I was just going to get caught in the middle of a battle that I would not be able to handle, especially if I was speaking in the middle of two individuals who were both, one was Israeli, for example, and one was Palestinian, because it would create it just puts individuals like me who have friends on both sides in a very awkward position. I can only imagine how you were able to handle that situation. So hats off to you.
No, he was
Well
able to
done.
handle it
Yeah, it was very
because
calm
yeah, no,
and
but
respectful.
the reason he was so good at it. By the way, whoever's got the birds, keep it going. Who is? Oh,
Oh, sorry, that's me.
now good.
I just
Keep the mic
let
open,
me
please. Keep it open.
let me let me
Oh,
just
Dr.
tell you that
Francine.
I heard that 30,000 people went through the room yesterday.
I
That
don't
is
doubt it.
accurate.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Francine, if you don't mind, please do keep your mic open. That's the most beautiful sound ever, wherever you are. I'm not even joking. Like, please, if you could unmute your mic, Francine.
Francine?
Yeah.
Yes, but I can't predict. I'm walking
Oh,
through my
right. Yeah, yeah.
neighborhood.
The truck, garbage truck drives by, whatever.
Could be, that's right. It
Yeah,
could be an ambulance
yeah.
or a
Well,
bird.
wherever you are, that sounds like a little piece of paradise right there.
How
Um,
about how about record and put on repeat?
yes.
Can
Oh,
you do
that's
it?
a great idea. A little fake bird background
Yeah.
while we hang out here. It's like a VR, audio
I
VR.
actually do. I do a lot of Zoom calls from my backyard because on my back patio there are tons of birds and bird noises, and it's pretty controllable.
Yeah, they sound like happy little birds there. I feel like I'm in a Bob Ross painting all of a sudden. It's fantastic. Um, welcome up, Johan and Tina and everybody. It's great to see everybody back on stage here. Um, hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday wherever you are. We just did cover the first kind of notable headline, which is the Android rollout for Clubhouse, and it'll be fantastic to see the positive impact that we can expect from that. The other big headlines to jump into, well, I can save those. We can see what other people have, and of course, people are tweeting fast and
Tyler?
furiously. Yes.
Yeah, the reason I raised my hand early on in your show is I had a question regarding if you want to invite people to speak on in your room and they happen to be government employees, they're a little bit, you know, because of whatever the situation is. But how do you then? What is your convincing to put them into your room, which tends to be neutral anyway?
Oh, that's a great question for Justin. Like, yeah,
Can you just summarize the question in one line, Tyler? My dog was barking.
go ahead, Diva.
Sure. All right, thank you. My question is I have been thinking of asking some, well, Philippine government officials who are not way up there, who's supposed to be neutral, to talk about some of the things that they care about or are relevant right now. But it seems like they may be reluctant because they're government officials. How do you incentivize them or convince them to go into a room such as Tech News Around the World, because Tech News Around the World is kind of, so to speak, politically
Yeah.
neutral. That's how I would put it.
Yeah,
How
but
about
Yeah,
you?
so I can answer that. Having been one of those not high up government officials behind the scenes, I would suggest either working with communications officials um, or former government officials, because it's nothing to do with Tech News Around the World. It's nothing to do with Clubhouse. And just to give an anecdote to why this is difficult, I had my next door neighbor on Clubhouse, and he's a former high ranking Trump government official, but had always been behind the scenes. And he was initially reluctant, despite trusting me, having a good relationship with me, to come on the show because of the same reasons that the government officials you're talking to would be when I was in government, the same reasons I would never do a show like this, because they primarily are not public speakers, and they would have to go through the approval process all the way up to whoever leads that agency. So it would be similar to trying to get approval for a congressman or woman to get one of their policy staffers on. So, to summarize, I would either go for higher level officials because it's going to take the same amount of opportunity cost and time, and or I would go for former government officials. And I specifically, if you're going for former government officials, I told you if you're going for the current ones to go for communications people. If you're going for former ones, go for the policy people, because they communicate just as well as the communications people, but they actually know what they're talking about. So that would be my advice. Sorry that it's not more optimistic or uplifting there.
No, that's very enlightening. Actually, yeah, great idea. The only thing though is the person I already talked to is like he already gave the knowledge that he's on Clubhouse. I didn't even ask for it. And I said, well, why don't, bring up some of the things that you are talking about regarding elections and maybe from the tech angle of it, because there was a tech angle problem before. And I said, well, let me see. I have to figure it out. So that's kind of the resistance, probably because government employee or a little bit higher up. So, but the other things that you were talking about, like somebody who is from previous, that probably might work a little bit more convincing on my side or anybody else's. Maybe I'll approach someone I know that knows the person more closely. So that's a good idea. Thank you, Justin.
Let me ask you
Yes.
something. What
Yeah.
you have 2 million Twitter followers. Why do you have so many Twitter followers?
Oh, well, I've been working on making the story shorter every time I say it. So pardon me if it's not short and succinct enough right now. Okay, DWA PH used to be Twitter_PH, which is very close to the Twitter PH official country account nowadays that you see. Any country that has a Twitter account, you would say it like that. India, Twitter,
Oh,
India,
right.
Twitter. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for cutting it short.
So they thought.
So
So the people were following you, thinking they're following the Twitter company account for the Philippines.
no, because it preceded the official Twitter PH account because it was a language account. When Twitter was crowdsourcing translation of
Oh,
Twitter in
got it.
2011, they created these accounts. But because Twitter PH, my Twitter PH, which is now Diva PH, I was a moderator for that, for the crowdsource. Then I became also a professional translator for Twitter under a language agency. What happened was later on they thought, oh, okay, we're going to have a real country account. So they started, and that's why they are verified, but we were not because we were language account. But then later on, because of DYPH's role in the disasters, the superstorms. We had a role in helping with that. They decided to keep it, but then the other language accounts, Twitter_Indonesia, they didn't anymore, even though it had so many more
Yeah,
followers.
got it.
Because of that, they decided to keep it and then gave it to me and do whatever I want to do with it.
There you
And
go.
that's the
Well,
short and
now
long.
you
Thank you.
invite. Now you can invite people and say, hey, they see your
It's
2 million Twitter followers.
it's not as easy as that. There is, you have one hand. On the one hand, you have it, on the other hand, your hand is kind of tied in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
And I don't want to talk about that, but that's
Okay,
what it
good.
is. All
Okay.
right. Thank
So
you.
before we've got fintech and medtech and green tech and all of those techs as usual. Who would like to go first? Anyone want to have a headline they'd like
Have
to
we,
share?
Tyler?
Yeah.
Tyler, I kind of just got here. What headlines have? And good
We
morning,
the
everyone.
only
None,
one
Sorry
none.
for
We haven't done.
we
for
We
being a
we're
little
really
just
late.
getting started.
yeah we really have
Yeah,
only done the fact that Clubhouse is going to be rolling out international Android and should be open to the entire world now on both Android and iOS by Friday apparently.
Okay, so we haven't touched on Apple Music launching spatial
No,
No,
we
audio
go
haven't.
and
ahead.
its
That's a
open
great one.
Yeah,
Go
go
promotion.
ahead.
ahead.
Let's do it.
Lossless audio in June at no additional cost,
Yes. And did you
which is
see
ridiculous.
the headline that came after about an hour after that?
Which one?
Amazon coming out with lossless music at no additional cost.
Oh yeah.
No, what a coincidence! I guess Amazon's feeling competitive with Amazon Music. So just to backtrack,
Amazon already had. Did Amazon already have Amazon HD Music? Because I'm a subscriber, I think, and also
Amazon
subscribe to
Music
Tidal.
HD, they call it. Yeah. So just to unpack
It's going
it,
to be out for a while.
yes, Apple says it will bring lossless audio to all Apple Music subscribers for free, and also will support what they call spatial audio with Dolby
Yeah.
Atmos, available starting next month in June. And the next generation of sound on Apple Music is coming to subscribers only, by the way, if you're not a subscriber. And by the way, there's different levels of lostness. For the really highest level, you won't even be able to take advantage of it from your computer or even your phone or your laptop or even your desktop Apple. You're going to need an additional piece of hardware called a DAC, which is called a digital audio converter, which means that the music is digital. It's bits. It's a file, which because it's digital. But when you convert the digital into analog, you need a digital to analog converter. Your laptop has one, your phone has one. Obviously, that's why you're able to hear the analog sound coming through the speakers. However, the digital analog converters in your phone and your laptop and your desktop are honestly decent quality, but not you won't be able to take advantage of lossless, which means like really like true fidelity. You're going to need an upgraded digital to analog converter, and you might need to pay $100 for a decent digital to analog converter to take advantage of this new lossless, which they're not really saying because it's more about marketing. And honestly, you're also going to need to upgrade your speakers to hear the advantage of this, because most speakers on the market today don't take advantage of true lossless audio either. But it's honestly Tidal was the one who really kicked this battle off, because this was Jay-Z's standpoint was, we are representing the artists, and artists care about this stuff, about the actual fidelity of the music, which there's some truth to this. And we honestly can't even have this conversation without mentioning one artist in particular, which is Neil
Neil
Young.
Young.
Yes.
I
Friend.
was
Yep.
just going to say to you, listen, you young whippersnapper,
Yep.
Neil Young has been fighting this
He's been
battle all along.
he's been going
And
to every investor with his device for the past 15 years, singing this song, no pun intended. And by the way, Neil Young happens to be one of my other than Stevie Wonder, one of my top 5 of all time. And
me too.
yeah, and Neil understood this fundamentally. He was years ahead. He's 15 years ahead on this point. And now the rest of the business is catching up. And he, as usual, by the way, I mean, Neil is consistently just years ahead. And so here we are. And now Apple and Spotify and Tidal. And now an hour after Apple announces it, here comes Amazon with a Me Too. We're doing it too, y'all.
Yeah, but see, Apple does the thing where you have to buy the equivalent of a dongle. You
Right.
know, Apple is big now on, okay, you bought the device. Now you have to buy the connector,
Right.
of the new thing to the device.
Yes.
And it's always they kind of nickel and dime you.
Precisely. And no doubt they will sell their own DAC, a digital to analog converter, to take advantage of
Well, of
that.
course.
Tyler,
Yeah.
I should mention that don't forget that Apple already has the the Apple TV that does play Dolby Atmos, and I've been using Tidal on Dolby Atmos for the
Right.
last couple of months, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic when you
And
have a
yes.
5.1, 5.21. So actually, they can leverage that.
Yeah.
And I think they should probably come back with their Apple HomePod, the big speaker. So that, I think they're going to start doing that, and then it'll be get interesting. I don't think you need to buy dongles,
Yes.
but you should buy their hardware to experience it.
Yeah, but you're right, because these are two separate technologies, both quite impressive. In addition to lossless, the spatial audio with the Dolby Atmos is a separate thing and it's great, like you said, for the TV experience, where basically the sound moves from in front of you to around you and etc. And this is built in also to the new AirPod Maxes, the over-ear headphones, like the $500-ish luxury headphones also have that. And that's why a lot of people are also excited about the event coming up on at WWDC on June 11th and June 7th, rather, if they're going to announce the new AirPod Pro 3s that are expected to have the spatial audio edition as well. So it should be very interesting. But speaking of big events coming up, there's a big event coming up tomorrow, which is Google's annual flagship event called the Google I/O, and I've added it to the calendar. And here's how it works. So at this time zone, because we meet twice a day now, and you could click on the title of the room to see the schedule and the upcoming events. And please do and follow the Tech News Club while you're there, and notice everybody on stage has their own deep dive room these days, which is fantastic. So tomorrow when we meet here, we're going to do Tech News around the world as normal and this time zone for 2 hours. At the end of the 2 hours, it perfectly, wonderfully, coincidentally bleeds right into Google I/O, the flagship Google annual developer event, where they are going to announce all kinds of stuff. And there's already one of the headlines I can share with you now is a leak of what is to be expected at this event tomorrow. So what we are expecting, and I will tweet it from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, so you can follow along if you like. Just give me literally 2 seconds. Tweet. Let me tweet. There you go. And tweeted. Okay. So what's coming up is, here we go. What to expect at Google I/O 2021. Google's big developer conference is back after a year of absence, which is true. They had to cancel last year due to some kind of virus or something. There was like a flu going around, so they had to cancel. But last year, right as people were going to start to grapple with the pandemic, like Google decided to cancel I/O. And here's what's coming up tomorrow. They go through the schedule. It's really all about Android 12 is one of the first big things. They're going to go in deep about all of the new features and functions of bells and whistles, and most notably the gorgeous design of Android 12. And there's all kinds of features that I won't go into detail with right now because it would take forever. And then they've got Google Assistant and their smart home improvements, and how all the smart home devices will work more seamlessly together, not just with Google, but with all smart home devices will now be able to work interoperably between Apple and Google and Amazon and IKEA and everyone at Samsung and everybody. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting. And then there's a big update for their wearable devices, a new operating system called Wear OS, and their new earbuds called Pixel Buds A, which look gorgeous and have very cool features like real-time translation. If you're visiting a city and you don't speak the local language, you can do real-time translation, for example. Other updates to the phone and the camera and the photos and etc. So just a little teaser. We're going to be joined in this room at the end of the news. After 2 hours of news, the live stream starts. We hang out in our seats, listen to and watch the live stream together on a browser, and can make comments. And we did this for the Apple event a few weeks back, which was fantastic. Victoria led it, and Michael during the HTC event just recently, which was also a lot of fun. It's just a really cool way to hang out in a room full of geeks and share thoughts about each of these new products and features as they're being announced in real time. So looking forward to that. And I want to pause and see, I've got so many people sharing so many headlines with me. And by the way, if I'm not reading your headline from Twitter, it doesn't mean that I don't like it. It just means I'm overwhelmed with tweets. So if you have something that you have shared via Twitter or elsewhere, don't hesitate to jump in and share it. So do flash your mics if there's something in your part of the world geographically or professionally you'd like to share. And it looks like Johan is burning up his microphone. Go ahead, Johan.
I did send you a tweet last night of a Norwegian company that actually had done the correct things with ransomware attack. Now I'm trying to find it again and I can't find it. Do we have it available?
You tweeted
why don't you? We'll come
quite
back
a
to you.
few. Yeah, go ahead and find it and then circle back. Yeah,
we'll come back to you. Yeah,
I'm one that I thought was particularly interesting since we met last. Remember, I'm not sure if it was in this room when I made the prediction about all of the hacking, or if it was the other time, but I made the prediction that this dark side hacker, outfit was going to become a bit of its own new pandemic, and they did get $5 million from the Colonial Pipeline, but apparently the government stepped in and shut down their payment system before they could cash the check, which is quite humorous. And then AXA, the big insurance, or AXA, the big insurance group based out of Europe, said they are no longer going to be ponying up for these ransoms that many of their clients, have insurance policies against hacking. And AXA says, yeah, but we're not going to honor all these ransoms. And guess who got hacked today? AXA, the insurance company itself, got hacked, and of course they are now being asked to pay a ransom their own selves, which makes me wonder if they're going to pay their own ransom, being that they're not going to pay their clients' ransoms. So we can expect an update on that issue in the next 24 hours. There was a big headline out of Indonesia about two of the biggest companies merging, specifically Gojek and Tokopedia, which is essentially one of the largest Uber-like delivery companies. What they do, food delivery and people delivery, and one of the big e-commerce companies. And you can imagine why that would be beneficial. And it's also why Amazon wants to get into the delivery business, and why they might partner with Uber, and what's why Google has autonomous driving. Tesla's working on these autonomous networks. It's all about the future of getting everything to your door with in less than an hour. And in some cases, like New York City, there was a headline recently that they're now trying to compete to get it there within 10 and 15 minutes. And that all really plays into the developing e-commerce, social-driven e-commerce of kind of habitual and instinctive, thoughtless, purchasing, where you're going to be watching social media posts on Instagram and say, oh, that looks cool, and there's a buy now button, buy, and next thing you know, it's at your house in 2 hours. And that's what the consumer driven economy is all about. And it used to be that the really hyper consumer economy only happened while you're walking down the streets looking through the windows. And e-commerce slowed that process down because it would take a week for the thing to get to your house. So, but now that it's going to turn into this Instagram influencers flaunting all kinds of goods and products and services, in fact, the ones that you follow already, and everyone you follow on social networks is going to be flaunting all kinds of products and services, and they're going to have little buy buttons to take it, one click delivery within an hour. And we're watching the necessary threads come together to make that happen. And that's why this huge partnership between the delivery company and the e-commerce company is interesting to watch in Indonesia, which is a huge market, by the way. But that's going to be replicated. That's starting in Asia, and as usual, that's going to come westward. I'll make a huge prediction now. We will see a delivery company and an e-commerce company merging in the U.S. in the next month or two. It's just a question of who. So thank you for inspiring those thoughts. Johan, anyone else got something burning they'd like to share? Mike Flash, looking once. Go ahead, Tina.
So I'm not sure if anybody's heard this yet, but CNBC just announced that AT&T is announcing a combined Warner Media with Discovery deal.
Yeah.
It's that. Sorry, if I'm going to read this headline really quickly. Where is it? Damn it.
AT&T to spin off and combine Warner Media with Discovery in a deal that would create a new streaming giant. And this is important, and here's why this is interesting. So I'm going to read a bit more from the CNN version. It says,
"Yeah, please.
The streaming TV race is about to get even more competitive." Yes, it is, and here's why. Because it was essentially Netflix's game, right? And Netflix and Hulu, essentially, Netflix pulled ahead, right? And then Disney realized the opportunity, and Disney ran into this, right? Now, what's going to happen is they are eating away at all of the eyeball hours that people are spending on all of their devices. It's the new way that people watch TV. They're not watching terrestrial TV anymore because, God damn it, no one's going to sit around and wait a week to watch their favorite show, because we've just become accustomed to wanting our content on demand. And that's what Netflix does. And that's what terrestrial TV does not, very notably. And the idea of waiting a week for a show is just ridiculous at this point. It sounds like something our grandparents used to do, even though, it was only, a year ago or 2 years ago. So things move fast in the digital media space. But my point is that these land grabs are happening in real time right now, and you can think of them as armies conquering the planet, and Netflix understands that. And because there's only so many that you're going to subscribe to for $10, and now they're raising the price $15 a month. Are you going to subscribe to 10 of them? No, probably not. Maybe 2 or 3. So that's why they understand the real foot race that's underway to capture as many homeowners as possible to get to be, the subscription content service that they pay for, because the more of the globe that you can dominate, the bigger your monthly revenue is that you can apply towards making more new content, because that's what they're doing now, right? So Amazon Prime is in this race. Amazon Prime goes to all of the big film festivals and finds the ones they like and says, oh, you want to make that film? And they talk to all the filmmakers about their next films, and they're financing all of them. Great, make it exclusive for our Amazon Prime subscribers, because they have this huge Amazon Prime. They make Amazon Prime part of, they're one of these players as well. Disney understands this. Netflix understands this. The movie studios themselves are no longer the players. This is the interesting part. The platforms are the new players. The platforms are the new studios who are financing the content of the future on their platforms to their subscribers. The model has completely shifted. Am I making it? Is it clear?
Tyler, the only caveat that I would add, so I was visiting some friends who live in Studio City
Yep.
Studio City, I want to say in LA.
We have both in LA, yeah.
Yeah.
Century City or Studio City. There's
I
both.
just don't remember which one.
That's all right.
The reason why I hesitated. But this must have been in December of 2019. I'm guessing January 2020.
Okay.
And Amazon bought huge lots right downtown. So they are morphing into being both producers, to your point,
Yep,
as well as distributors.
correct.
So they're replacing the studios in many cases.
That's what I'm saying. That's precisely what I'm saying. Yeah, very literally. Yeah, YouTube, by the way, YouTube is in the game as well, but not as much so far in the film production game like Netflix is, because Netflix was kind of built on the 90-minute traditional film format, and Michael's going to jump in and correct all of us here in a second. But but YouTube wasn't based on that. YouTube was built on the original 2-minute cat video, and then it evolved into the TV format, 30-minute video format, and they very consciously did that over the past 8 years, where they wanted to compete with TV, and they have, and they do. And more TV viewing hours is now more spent on YouTube than off of YouTube. So mission accomplished. YouTube is now going to chase after the 30-second TikTok format, because they understand how important that is to the e-commerce. But the film piece, Netflix is kind of leading on. Disney wants to be in that race. And then this big announcement that you're talking about AT&T and Discovery and Warner Media to spin off, to be combined with Discovery, so that Discovery is going to be the new standalone media company, because they have tons of content under Discovery. And if they partner with Warner Media, that's a lot of content. So I'll just read the next paragraph, and then Michael, you fill us in. It says, the deal, subject to regulatory approval, of course, will combine 2 treasure troves of content, including HBO Max and Discovery Plus streaming services. CNN will be included in the transaction. Discovery CEO David Zaslav will run the combined business. I think we fit together like a glove, he says in a virtual press conference. On one level, the tie-up is a logical way to better compete with Netflix and Disney. Oh, well, there it is. And that is the game right now, is Netflix versus Disney. And these guys see the golden opportunity to compete in this global land grab for the subscription subscribers. Because if you can get enough of them, you can start paying for content generation, professional, high-level, Hollywood-level content generation. Which is really Netflix's game. Amazon's in the game too, to a degree, and YouTube in a various different way. Go ahead, Michael.
Actually, everything you guys are saying is correct. I just geographically just wanted to Lakeisha. It's they won't be replacing the studios, but they will be neighbors.
True.
And the city that you're thinking of is actually Culver City. Century City kind of is locked down in terms of studios, as is Studio City, which is kind of locked down by CBS Radford. But in terms of Culver City, it's kind of the Wild West right now, and Amazon's got their studios opening up there, but HBO is going to be opening up a studio there as well as Apple. So Culver City is kind of trying to position themselves as that space for the digital studio realm.
Yep, and
But as Michael, as a film guy, a guy that's effectively got your own little studio, right? Effectively,
Yeah, absolutely.
how do you think about this? Like, you've now got, where would you like to go with, for distribution, or do you distribute it yourself now directly through various platforms? How do you think about it?
Well, I think it's fantastic for a number of reasons. I remember when I first got to LA, when I was still, wet behind the ears back in 2004, 2005. And this, so you got to think about it in terms of this too. There is no smartphone yet. We're a couple years out from that point. There is no smartphone. There are no smart maps. People are still using something around here called the Thomas Guide, which was a hot mess of how to get around the city. Um, and it was pretty out of control. But the bottom line is, back then it was an entirely different world, and all you had was the traditional Hollywood. Whereas today there are several different Hollywoods. You've got your traditional Hollywood, which is still a lot of people's end game, for those people who are serious performers or artists and want to be taken serious. The end game is definitely going to be traditional Hollywood, still kind of the golden era Hollywood. But now you've got your self-made Hollywood, which is what happened with YouTube and whatnot. And then you've got your influencer version of Hollywood. And all of them, there's even, as crazy as it is, there's even agents and agencies that are, opening up, that the whole idea is to manage these influencers and whatnot. So you're getting all these different versions of Hollywood, and now you're getting another new Hollywood, which is going to be these kind of digital studios that are coming to open up and kind of skip the middleman there. Apple's plans to do that are very, very important, as are
Dude.
HBO's. The head of HBO right now is actually my cousin, Jeremy Scripter, out in New York. He's the head of HBO in terms of all of their advertising content, trailers, all that kind of stuff. So he's the one who's in charge of all the editing for them. And the things that he tells me about HBO's plans are, HBO's really trying to position themselves, believe it or not, because they've been around long and they've got a household name, but people kind of sleep on what it is that they're trying to do over there. But they're really quietly building a very, very solid digital platform, and they've always produced really great original content. But they haven't had a focused space to do so. And so now they're kind of trying to cut out the middleman as well. And as far as my opinion on it all, it's fantastic, because this means people like you guys. I mean, think about this. Now we have people like you guys who are in the tech space and in investment, who understand the importance of the metaverse, and understand the importance that digital technologies and 3D and AR and all these types of things are going to be playing in the future. You guys are going to be able to invest in, combining money and finances and kind of digital power with people like me, and putting together these situations where we can kind of facilitate our own films and television shows and things like that for the digital space, in terms of 3D and AR and things that Hollywood is about big money. They're not, when we put out a movie out here for the traditional studios, if anything less than $300 million and you're a flop, which is insane that that's where we're at now, but that's what it is. Whereas if you're one of these studios like Netflix or whatnot, when they first started, we had a good 8, 9, 10 movies on there because they were starving for content. Now they're putting out 890 original projects per year, and it's you have to go through you got to go through a curator in order to get your content up there, unless you're one of the fortunate ones like
Michael, a couple of years ago, the number I saw for how much they investor. I was comparing it to the studios. They're 8 billion a couple of years ago. They must be on 10 billion a year, right? That they're
Yeah,
spending on content
yeah,
creation, and the average
absolutely.
studio is like 2 billion or something. I don't know, like.
Absolutely. And the thing is, and this is the other thing about it, and this is what's pretty tricky about it, is the quality of the content and this just goes to show you about branding as well, how powerful branding is. Every other major Hollywood studio releases on average something between 40 and 80 films a year. Disney, before they bought Fox, will only release 11, and they were still double, if not triple, the amount of income that all the other studios combined were making. So Disney only had to release a dozen projects, and that would literally wipe out the net income of all the other studios combined with 120, 130 projects per year. So that just goes to show you the power of branding, and that goes back to what's happening right now with these kind of smaller systems. Apple and how they're positioning themselves, Amazon, HBO, all these little companies that are coming, and I call them little, but all these companies that are coming into this space, branding is going to play an extremely important part to how many subscribers they actually get moving forward. So,
Yeah.
I'd like to add to that if it's okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, guys. This is Luis at the bottom. Everything Michael said is exciting for independent filmmakers. I get to play in both worlds, union and independent. The interesting thing of all these things coming together right now with the studio development, the aggressive approach of going after intellectual property, independent filmmakers have a better shot better than ever in their lives. All of this is coming to fruition. The interesting nominal that I'm looking forward to is how blockchain and these cryptocurrencies are helping us also, whether you want to look at NFTs or funding or whatever it is. Fortunately, I'm getting a little lucky in that space, connecting the dots with the tech world and the entertainment world, and it's a clean, sweet plus together. I didn't have the good word for it, but they are gluing together very well. The funding is happening, and something that I'm going to predict is how all this is going to come together. The funding is going to come. There's some interesting things that are going to come out of Miami at this blockchain event, which is in a couple of weeks. People don't take into account, but I'm paying attention because the sports world, the NFL is about to kick off, and they're supporting blockchain. These athletes actually love to invest in the entertainment world. Blockchain developers are going to be there. People who have done very good with Dogecoin, just as an example. And the Floyd Mayweather fight, which is traditional television, HBO, Showtime, kind of people behind it. And then the YouTube world is coming together. There's a very interesting nucleus that's all coming together. This is going to be a melting pot, and I believe quite confidently, because I will be there, a lot of things will get launched from this event, things that have been in discussion, because during COVID, what it's done to writers and to the studios is we've had to back off. It's given us time to actually rewrite and hash out these scripts. Over the next 10 years, we will see better content than we ever have in the past as a whole in a group. Maybe not the best ever, but more quality content will come out because we've had time to rethink everything. I look forward to all of that.
That's a
Thanks.
really
Can actually
interesting thought.
tie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with
Tyler,
you.
I found it.
Oh, okay. Victoria, you just chiming in to agree there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but Victoria, we're going to drop.
Tyler, can
Did
I
you want to
also
say something,
just
Victoria? 1 second. Did you want to say something? Sorry, Victoria.
No, but Victoria and I can jump into the Apple Robert Scoble's blog post
Yeah.
and blow people's minds with that and take it up to a
can I,
whole new level here in a minute. But I think Johan wanted to share it, was burning to share the article that you lost. But let me see if somebody, Jonathan wanted to say something first. Go ahead, Jonathan.
yeah, can I just point out that John Malone owns Discovery, so John Malone also is one of the major stockholders of Charter, Liberty Global. So maybe there's also a convergence of the weaker content partners forming
Of
alliances with
course,
access partners.
I thought exactly that.
Can I
That's
just say the
yeah.
tie-in with the content platforms and blockchain and whatnot is already happening. I mean, Disney have had Dragon Chain for many years now. They've been snapping up blockchain developers, and then just at the end of April, they filed for a new patent for a piracy blockchain technology. That, it doesn't solve all problems, but it could be something that they're actively working on to either protect their own content or even franchise out.
Yeah. The content game gets really interesting because all game developers know that video games is now, and everyone in Hollywood knows that video games are and traditional films are becoming a bit competitive in a way, right? Like some of these very big popular gaming titles are becoming and when we add in the 3D element, it gets really blurry, and that's where this Apple event coming up on June 7th. In fact, it's a whole week, June 7th to 11th, the WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference that Apple puts on once a year. And it's predicted that this year will be the biggest year in the past decade. Here's why. As Robert Scoble shared on his Twitter account, he calls it the new 3D Apple arriving at WWDC. And for context, those who don't know Robert Scoble, is self-admittedly the world's biggest Apple fanboy. Even before that was a popular term. And the blog post that I'm tweeting out now, Twitter doesn't want me to tweet his blog post. That's really weird. I did tweet it earlier today, so you can scroll down a bit. But I just want to unpack a few things that we are to expect at WWDC on June 7th. Apple's essentially spent, according to him, $40 billion getting ready over the past decade for this event coming up in just a couple of weeks. And here's what to expect. He says there's essentially 13 things they're going to be launching potentially over the next year, many of them at this event. One is the idea of an entirely three-dimensional virtual world that you can right now start to play with. And Michael, you weren't in the previous time zone. What is the name of the website? There's several, but the one that he mentions in his blog post is called Sketchfab. And if you have not seen Sketchfab, you should. And you just make note of it.
I have a pro account.
Yeah, Sketchfab. And what it is it's an ever-growing repository of 3D items that, by the way,
I use it daily.
Yeah, you can, and nearly everything you can imagine is in there now. And you yourself can start making, as Carl said recently, you can start making 3D virtual objects with your iPhone because it's built in now to your iPhone. It has the proper LiDAR scanner, and you can scan your sunglasses or a bottle of water or any kind of thing in front of you on your desk or your shoes or whatever. And people do this for e-commerce reasons. And in fact, the Apple website, when they launched the last iPhone, had a virtual iPhone that you could spin around on the website. And people like seeing fully 3D images on e-commerce because you get to really see what the item is like. And that's just one use case. There's potentially hundreds of really mind-blowing use cases because once the item has been scanned and put in this 3D environment and put on Sketchfab, anybody can, licensing permitted, most people do make the stuff usable just by attribution. You can build 3D environments yourself and import all of this endless millions of 3D items into your virtual environments and create entirely new worlds. And that's the point that Robert Scoble's begging in this blog post that I just shared, where he says a new 3D world, because not only are items like phones and water bottles and shoes being digitized in 3D, but entire rooms, entire offices, entire homes, entire cities are being 3D scanned. And he says Apple is driving cars down the roads, 3D scanning cities, and is making a entirely 3D map of the entire world. So if you think Google Street View is interesting today, as you're going down the road in Street View by clicking like a broken skipping record, you jump 100 meters and then another 100 meters and another 100 meters in Google Street View, it will no longer be like that. You will literally walk scrolling smooth buttery with your finger, and every detail in that thing will be a virtual 3D thing, which take a look at Sketchfab to get a better idea of what I'm talking about. There already are environments that have been done, like the Stonehenge, for example. You can see and go visit Stonehenge in 3D, and if you have a VR headset, you can visit it in VR now. But the point is more than just Stonehenge. Every square foot of the planet will be done in this 3D space, but in the near future. And so that's one of 13, to just give you a context of how exciting this upcoming event is. But the other things are a new search engine being built into Siri, which, for example, you'll be able to do really interesting new searches with Siri, like how many people are at the Starbucks near my house right now, because they can get a sense based on the number of iPhones that are in that store. And just Siri can tell you, well, there's 20 people with iPhones there, so there's probably 60 people in the store, because just the ability of Siri to get much smarter into accessing extra databases and stitching together databases in real time to give very data-rich responses to very complex queries. And they need to do that because Siri and Alexa and Google Assistant are more and more becoming the gateway for your searches. They will start to eat away at the number of searches you do every day. Right now, 1% of your searches are, voice driven, and in the future they will eventually become the majority, but to do that, Siri needs to become much better as a search engine. Of course, Google fundamentally understands that, so does Alexa, and so the race is on there, and he has it on good authority. He says he's spoken with people at Apple who are working on that, so he's expecting the new search engine to be built into Siri, and he's expecting this one is really interesting. This whole 3D universe that we were just talking about is really only possible now because of the M1 chips that are put into the new iMacs, into new Apple devices, the new laptops, and will continue to come out in all the new devices. It's in the new iPad Pro, for example, and it'll eventually come into the next iPhone, for example, and it will be in these M1 chips are what are needed processing wise to do this. Now, your phone doesn't have it. So how's this going to work? Well, glad you asked. Your phone does have a chip called a U processor, a U chip, a U processor. The U processor is what's called ultra wideband, which means it can send a lot of data, but not do the processing on the phone. But it can connect to other devices in your home that do have an M1 chip and send it over to your iMac or your iPad Pro or your MacBook Pro, and the processing will happen on that device in your home. And these U chips of this ultra wideband connection is sort of the next generation of Bluetooth, essentially, is what it is. And it exists today, but it will become much more ubiquitous as Apple works to put more M1 chips and U chips in your home and in your office and etc. But here's the big killer thing that he's expecting is this, and everyone's been talking about, we've been talking about it endlessly, but it's now very clear that it's coming at this event, which is a VR, AR, MR headset that he's calling the holodeck, also the TV killer. And this is how it relates back to the previous conversation we were having about HBO and Discovery and Netflix, yada, yada, because all of those things assume a two-dimensional, screen in your home. However, this Apple headset that we're talking about, of a VR/AR mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality device, will essentially allow you to feel like you are in a augmented reality, where you could have a virtual screen appear before you of an IMAX size resolution that you could do your work on, and you could have 20 different screens and watch 20 different channels simultaneously. Why have one screen when you can have, it's like you're at a Las Vegas betting facility and you're watching 50 different horse races simultaneously. You'll be able to do that in this. That's one of the 100 of interesting use cases of this new VR environment. For example, if you'll have your work screen open and your chat screen, the Clubhouse, and 20 other things, whatever, you can have as many virtual screens as you want. Why limit yourself to one screen? Of course you can, but then it would be take over. Why even have it a screen? Why not make it an actual experience, a VR experience, where you literally walk through the damn screen onto the football field? So that's the future of content in this context that is going to be introduced at this Apple event. Is you're no longer going to be watching football on a screen. You're going to jump through the goddamn screen and stand on the goddamn field. That's what the future of football is going to feel like. And you'll be able to control yourself and jump all around the damn stadium, because the stadiums will be covered in cameras, and you'll be able to jump from camera to camera to camera all over the stadium. but you'll
We're
feel.
doing this now.
Yeah, that's happening now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But the Apple's the one who's really going to bring it into the mainstream as they've historically done, and that's what this event
which is
is
what's awesome
shaping up for.
which
Yeah,
is what's awesome is because we have these. So what's great about all of this for us is nerds is that we're living through the birthplace of it, and we're the ones that are kind of developing this, and our friends and peers are putting this stuff together. I mean, you can see the smaller versions of this stuff when you look at things like virtual desktop, where I've already got 4 or 5 screens just all over of various sizes. You look at things like big screen VR, and you already have these rooms, and you look at alt space and these types of things like these. We're looking at the birthplace of all of this, and we see where it's going. And what Apple is doing is they understand exactly precisely where it's going, and they're going to be building the hardware and
And
kind of
the
facilitating the
software.
software.
yeah,
They're going to be building
Michael,
the hardware and
and,
facilitating that software.
and
What's up,
more of
Victoria?
the
Victoria,
content.
Victoria.
How far do you guys see this happening? I mean, this sounds like I mean, this
It's a
doesn't
10-year
sound like it's
plan for
happening
Apple.
so here's the thing. Apple has been developing this stuff for a long time. ARKit has been around for at least the last 5 years, and a lot of developers have been developing augmented reality experiences using this, thus refining it as time has gone by, as well as, with the new M1 chips that we all talked about. So this is something that has had a lot of thought and already a lot of development by people like us. Over the last year, LiDAR has been on these Apple devices, and myself included. We've been just 3D scanning the world just because we can now. And they've made it so easy now to integrate augmented reality into Apple devices using Reality Composer, which uses ARKit on the back end, where you could have AR already natively on the iPad and on the iPhone. And it's super user friendly to build. So not only are we going to be living in these extended realities, but Apple has made it so that we can create part of the world that we're living in very, very simple and seamless ways. So I'm just really, really excited about what's coming. But as I said in the other time zone, we all do need to be cognizant that is a whole lot of data that's being transmitted back and forth. And we definitely need to start looking into ways to protect ourselves, because everyone here in this room knows that these tech companies don't really care about our well-being. And yes, they only keep the data for about 72 hours and then they wipe it. But frankly, anyone could hack into these databases and steal 2 days worth of everyone's data. And we don't want that to happen. So I just wanted to kind of bring everything into the right perspective. This is awesome. And this is the world I've been literally building for the last 5 years. But it's also all of our responsibility to make sure that we use it responsibly. Thank you. This has been Victoria, and I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, and Victoria hosts and Michael together host what I think are the best VR related rooms here in Clubhouse. So definitely follow them and the Tech News Club. So when they're doing their rooms, you'll get notified. And to the point I was making was it's interesting that this big land grab is going on in the 2-dimensional film content, while at the same time this 3D world is about to explode. And it's really feels like we're right at the tipping point with the way that Facebook is really pushing Oculus at the moment, and Microsoft's feeling competitive around it, and Apple feels like it's about to explode on the 3D front, as Robert Scoble says. And so I don't know how much time we're going to be spending in this 2D world that these legacy companies and Netflix are fighting over, when this 3D world is right on our doorstep. Because once you go into that 3D world, it'll be interesting to see. A lot of the kids these days are playing on Roblox, and they're already creating their own environments in a 3D-ish like environment with Roblox and Minecraft, etc. And to Victoria's point, these 3D environments with Apple's tools are getting to a point where in the next couple of years, very young folks will pretty much everybody's going to be able to do it. It's pretty much there, as Carl was saying himself. You hold up your iPhone. Once you know how to do it, you just watch a few YouTube videos about how to do it. Next thing you know, you're creating 3D worlds your own damn self, and it's going to blow
That's
people's
not
minds.
even where it gets cool,
Yeah.
because it's when you put in like natural language processing, like GPT-4 whenever it comes out, and then you combine that with things like Sketchfab, and then you combine that with you put all of that together in some sort of like rendering software, and then you get something like Promethean AI, which I think has been brought up before, and Victoria has looked into, where you just stick on your VR headset and you say, "Show me a room," and then you get a room, and you say, "Make the walls red." And then the walls turn red. And then you say, "Show me a desk." And then the desk is there. And you say, "No, make it a little bigger. Move it to the left. Now add a cat." And now you've got educators are
It's
able
for
to make
real.
whatever room they want. You've got people at home. You can make what game you want. And you don't need the knowledge about how to make a 3D environment.
100%.
And then no coding is, you know this, Tyler, no coding is like exploding at the moment.
But
And it's getting to the point where you can just write things
yeah,
in a natural way, and it's converted into code. You put all
correct.
that together, and I'm unemployed.
There was one of the most impressive things I've seen in the past year was a GPT-3. We don't even need to wait for GPT-4. Literally, right now's technology, GPT-3. Somebody made an image creator based off the text inputs, and it was like, make me a neon sign in the era of 1920s Paris that says "Go eat dog poo poo," and boom, it's there, right in front of your.
I may or may not do PR consulting for a company that is doing GPT-3 gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And what Tyler and Carl are saying is 100% true. Essentially, what's going to happen is the storylines for games are going to be just created by people writing in normal text into a computer platform, and then that's going to spit out a bunch of different versions and scenarios and context. So, for example, if you put on, if we're going to go down the hypothetical road, through GPT-3, which is natural language processing, and it's a form of AI, you could put on, theoretically, once the tech is out there, you could put on the headset and you could say, all right, I'm Justin Higgins. I'm walking from my house in DC down to Congress to go protest the elections on January 6th. And then the GPT-3 can create a whole scenario where you're not only walking down the street, but the GPT-3 will create a computer character that you interact with. Let's say a vendor selling hot dogs, for example, and it can be literally look like it's real life. And you can have a conversation with that character in real time. And every single time you put in the same scenario, that conversation will be unique. So it's not like the World of Warcraft where you're interacting with the computer generated responses and it's very rote and it's preordained. This will be a unique conversation that creates a unique scenario every single time you're interacting. It'll be based on your emotions and the inputs you have. So this is truly the future of gaming, and it will be wholly immersible, and I just think it's absolutely fantastic.
We just
I wanted to add to the copy, the GP3 thing as well. So for copywriters as well, blog posting, people who are writing copy for, let's say, e-marketers, let's say, there are tools now. So Copy AI is one of them. There are quite a few. You just put in a few keywords and it will literally generate a whole scenario, as Justin was saying. It's literally putting people out of business. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah,
Tyler, can I make a comment?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of new
comment?
folks I invited on stage that have VR, AR backgrounds. Nicholas, very notably, who joins us very regularly, but also Chris, and there was a couple others. But flash your mics so we can just do a quick follow of order here, so I know who's got something on the VR, AR topic. Go ahead, Chris.
Hi. Yeah, my background in VR has been going back like 10 years. I was originally at USC, where Palmer Luckey had this taped up glass thing that I thought would never be big. I continue to kick myself in the butt for that one. But I would make a comment about the scanning capability of iPhones. It's just not there yet. The resolution, very poor. But so I look forward to maybe some advancements in their scanning ability and the resolution of the scans that you can do on iPhone, so that it does become a professional level scan. It's not quite there yet, but I look
No.
forward to that.
Well, let's be clear about the language. It works. It's fine. It blows people's minds. It's just not at the professional level where you're going to put it in a George Lucas film yet. Yeah, of course.
They're consumer devices.
Yeah, it's a consumer
Yeah, I agree.
device. It's not you're not going to get a professional outcome out of the consumer device yet. But eventually, someday we'll make films on our iPhones and 3D content as well.
Yeah, and last thing, thank you for bringing me up to the stage. Hat tip to Ben Tristan, who is responsible for my Unity development in C# and VR. Thank you, Ben.
Nice to have you here. Thanks, buddy. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
Unity
Thank you.
plays an interesting role in the whole equation as well. But that's my point, is around how gaming and the future of content and VR, the traditional media of film. It'll be interesting to see how the VR world deals with the 2-dimensional historical content. Nicholas, you had a thought on that?
Yeah, so I mean, the Scoble thing, doesn't this sound like pretty much what I touched upon
It
a
does.
few weeks ago
Yes, it does.
with the M1 and everything?
That's right.
So it's fun. It's fun to have it all collected in a blog post. We'll see how much will come out at WWDC. I think that in the weekend there came out an announcement or a tease about Apple Music that I think can play into this largely.
Yeah.
They just said that music will never be the same again.
Yep.
And it might as well be this spatial computing is applied to music. That would be very cool to have virtualized speakers everywhere you go, or a virtualized 5.1 surround environment
Right.
that you can share with others.
Right. But by the way, so here's what's so interesting. Scoble wrote that blog post about 2 days ago, right? And he says this virtualized speaker thing is going to be coming, where you're going to be able to have sounds coming from everywhere, because that's part of what's needed in a very convincing VR AR environment, right? Is that the sounds really feel like they're coming from where your brain thinks they should be coming from. You really need this VR sound kind of thing, which normal audio stereo is not really about that, right? It's just two sound sources coming into your ears. VR sound, you really need to replicate kind of the actual real world, real reality, literal reality. And by the way, in the past 4 hours or so, Apple announces essentially that, but they weren't so obvious about it. They said they're announcing lossless audio and will also support spatial audio. But that's a big part of what spatial audio is about. People are thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Listen to hip hop songs in spatial audio? No. Are you going to listen? And somebody mentioned on stage, yes, it was Mabwana actually who rightly pointed out, spatial audio is fantastic for listening to traditional 2D film and TV. Yeah, it is great for that, and sports especially, because you sound like you're being surrounded. You're in the middle of the game. But what the surround sound is really about is about the VR experience, because that's where you'll really need it to really create the real impression that you're in that environment.
Yeah.
But they were but Apple didn't really connect the dots for everybody in their announcement today, or because it wasn't. I think it was leaked actually about their event coming up soon. But they've got the technology's there, and it's built into the new big earphones, and it'll probably come out in the next generation of earbuds as well.
Yeah. Secondly, one addition was since we got into the GPT3 track.
Yep.
So I posted a tweet linked to TNA-TW, and it was about GPT Neo. So GPT-3 is not accessible to anyone. The license is locked away and is mostly opened at a big cost, or if you're a big organization. But there's an alternative, and you can go to the GPT Neo GitHub and play around with it. And it's open source. It's an alternative. It has proven to be more performant than the very earliest iterations of GPT-3. So it has like a training set of 2.7 billion words or sources, and GPT-3 first version had that number as well. Now there has been more improvements on the GPT-3 newest iterations, but you can still get a taste of it in a more accessible way by looking for GPT Neo. So go and play with that if you want to.
Hey, Tyler,
Yes,
could I would it be okay for me to bring up the negatives potentially about this type of technology?
go for it.
Yeah, so GPT-3 and mostly the future iterations, people need to realize. I think that there was a female voice that also pointed out there could be potentially an extreme amount of job losses due to how just fantastic this technology is. So think about coders. Right now, they're trying to create a version of this technology that will basically make a lot of coding jobs obsolete. Not sure if that's possible. The articles are saying that it is down the line. In addition to that, people working in professions that maybe even storytelling to a certain degree could become obsolete. So that's like professions like mine, where you're doing press releases and PR. I mean, this is basically like the first generation technology, and this thing could easily write a press release that I pump out. So that's another concern. But additionally to that, where this really gives me the heebie-jeebies, and that is a technical term, of course, is you could use this technology right now today, never mind when you're in the future, and it's much better, to create propaganda manifestos. So manifestos that promote, white nationalism, political violence, extremism, that are more compelling than any of the actors currently doing that could create today. You could create those manifestos in literally minutes as opposed to hours, days, or months that it takes to do so. And then you could propagate it throughout the internet. And finally, the last thing is there can be stories, and you can create scenarios, and you can create an immersive world that is kind of focused on fostering extremism. So think of religious extremism, think of sexism, racism, any ism. And you could create stories that you hear about people on YouTube when they click and they watch videos, and they get more and more extreme because the videos that they're watching and getting immersed in are more and more extreme. And then they go out and they potentially either create real world violence or promote these ideas in the real world. The same exact thing can happen with this type of natural language processing, not only in text format, where people are creating these scenarios that are focused on basically radicalizing the individuals that are more susceptible to this. But then, because we're talking about potentially everything getting cheaper for video games and AR and all of these things, you can then add another psychological component to it with not only extreme storylines through texts, but something that's actually truly immersive. And that's why, and it's going to happen. It's 100% going to happen. So I think that for policymakers and for tech leaders like Tyler and Carl and people in this room, as you're watching the development of this technology and the proliferation of it, everybody needs to be mindful of these potential negative aspects, because it will lead to the loss of human life and division in society. So it's very easy to yell First Amendment, free speech, without thinking about the other consequences. And I think it's important that I bring this up so that we also have that in mind.
Tyler, this is
360.
Shirley. I'd love to
Go
add
ahead, Shirley.
to that. Justin, it was me who mentioned that. So I just want to give a bit of context, right? If we're talking about people who earn a living, maybe as VAs, maybe because they've lost their jobs, and they're talking about, I'm going to be a social media manager for someone. The art of story writing is now automated. The quality assurance is now automated in terms of spelling check, grammar, etc. Scheduling, posting is now automated. I can even schedule and post when the system tells me my crowd is going to be online. I don't even have to do that anymore. The engagement is automated through things like messaging bots. You've even got, like, it's literally wiping out the value chain. And then I was just wondering, where is this all going? So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Second Life. It's a virtual world. I do have
Oh
some
yeah.
experience. Yeah. So it literally, I mean, there is a whole cottage industry in there. People make a lot of money on there. Actually, they did try and court the corporate world. I do feel it was a bit of ahead of its time. But we were able to hold meetings from around the world. We're seated at tables. We have great audio. And now with the emerging technology, I really feel that could really flourish. And I do wonder whether the big tech are now going to try and find get their versions as well. I mean, you can literally buy an island, sell plots on it, and it's kind of like a real world. So I'll just be really interested to know what people think about things like that.
With
And Shania,
to that point,
That's already happening.
Axie, the guy who we brought him in here, Axie is now the biggest expenditure of all NFTs. There's different NFT platforms like the NBA shots and other um, kind of efforts, projects. Axie has the largest total amount spent in their ecosystem, and it's exactly that. It's like Second Life, but you're buying the land through NFTs essentially. But most NFTs they have the biggest total market value of NFTs is in their ecosystem, which is a virtual land ecosystem.
Just one
Tanya,
Could I
quick add to
quickly
that?
jump in?
Mm-hmm.
Can anyone think of what's not going to change for the next couple of decades? Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty overwhelmed. And I'm seriously thinking of creating a book of constants, if that's even possible, because by looking at what's to come, um, it's pretty hard. The only thing I can think of is human behavior so far. Um, so I'd like to hear what your thoughts
Well,
are on that.
what's
Pancakes.
not going to change is the pace of government legislation and human biological evolution are the bottlenecks, and our own social psychology are not going to be able to catch up with the rate of innovation, because the rate of innovation of technology is growing exponentially, and we are going linearly, and so the gap between the friction that we're feeling that's starting now is going to exacerbate exponentially, and it's going to.
Okay, but you did see the headline I shared with you with the Ukraine clinic who's planning on offering CRISPR services for DNA. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I kind of think that if we continue going down this road, we're very
But
likely
what do you
to
have in your first
speciate
chapter of the book? What do you have as a like? That's such a good frame. Like what do you think will stay constant?
human behavior, desire for more, um,
Yeah.
desire for expansion. That's
The
all I have so far. But it's only something I came up with earlier today when I was literally throwing an avalanche of tweets at Tyler's feed.
Yeah.
It's a great frame,
um,
though. It's a great frame. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we
yeah.
need good.
Circle
We
back
will
to
constantly need good water and good air.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah, that's a good. The food, water, air, and yeah, it was a thought
I,
that I was watching one of the most mind blowing VR videos recently of this female artist doing almost like creating a VR painting of sorts, because there are apps that enable this where it helps you. It was almost like she was Picasso in a studio, but there's no canvas. It's just a 3D empty space, but she can fill the
Tilt
empty
brush.
space, right? Yeah. And
Okay.
she clearly has spent endless hours in this environment and has a real mastery of it, and is kind of entertaining to watch, like watching, an artist perform, when there's a band performing and the artist is performing in synergy with the band, sometimes, if you've ever seen that. So it was like that, but in a 3D space. And I'm watching this thinking, wow, this person is building stuff in this 3D space, and that can be sold as an NFT, can be part of virtual art galleries, can be a million potentials for where all this could go. Yet, the conflict in Myanmar, the conflict in Gaza, Gaza doesn't have water now. There's people all over India dying of COVID. It's like, if we jump into this VR world, it is an escape for sure, and that itself raises ethical questions and etc. And it's like, It is a unique, almost a privileged space to be able to live in, because here's what the interesting thing is: that person who's creating in that VR space feels as if they are creating real things. But the second the power goes out, that world is turns off. So it's like people who play video games are familiar with this paradox as well. It's like, you have this virtual wizard, level 85 characters that you've invested, countless hours and days and weeks into this level 85 wizard, which when the game's over, what happened to those hours that you invested? Because if you invest those 85 hours in physical, we need a name for the real world now, literal reality, LR, then, you have these fiat currencies and food and water and these real things, as you just said, Shirley. But virtual water isn't going to. You have a physical body, and until you have a virtual body, you're going to need physical water and physical food and a physical place to live. Those things can't be brought into the virtual space or be satiated by virtual creation, so to speak. So that's my rant on that.
We'll all be on UBI. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Universal basic income. I just had a question, right? So VR, I think, does have some positives, because when people are creating in these worlds, they create once, and that thing can be sold over and over and over again. So that's a good thing, because you don't always need to get the raw materials. Does that make sense? Right?
Yes,
For
it makes
example, if
perfect sense.
yeah, so
Sorry.
that's possibly a good thing. But also my concern is, I mean, we know that I think most of us are heavily immersed in technology, heavily interested in technology. My issue is the guys coming up and studying in schools now, are the teachers teaching them well equipped to kind of position them to understand the opportunities that VR, not just VR, but just technology in general, conveys to them. So that's the one thing that I'd like to see change fast.
Hi, this
Todd,
is
Todd
I
has an amazing frame on this, on the
I
skills
also
needed for
think,
the,
sorry,
sorry.
I also think space exploration is something we can sink our teeth in.
Heyman, you keep DMing me. You're not on stage yet. I invited you on stage, by the way. If you're not
hey,
able to accept it, go out and come
Sorry.
back in. Yeah, go ahead. I brought up
Uh,
there was a people with Heyman is on stage. Welcome, Heyman.
yeah. So I'm not sure whether you guys are overthinking it because we're talking about Apple here, right? And I've been following Apple's maps. If anyone hasn't checked out their maps, the street view on their maps is amazing. And if you look carefully, each of the stores and storefronts on their maps is marked already, unlike Google, right? So I'm thinking this is a Google play. They're trying to destroy Google in the maps field. Like if you could take 3D, and there was actually an article way back a month ago that actually said that Apple's really interested in people uploading their pictures to their maps. So I'm wondering whether this is purely to also go and do internal environments with 3D, like have the users add to their maps.
Yeah,
So technically, they will be mapping out the whole world.
that's part of the point.
Yeah.
You're exactly right, which is the inside scanning of an office you'll see them if you go to that Sketchfab. You'll see people doing with their iPhones, scanning their entire inside of their offices. So the inside of every business on Apple Maps or Google Maps you can now click on the front of the store and go inside the store. That can happen. And then what would be really interesting, and this is kind of mind blowing. My God, Heyman, you just wow. What if that becomes the e-commerce portal? That's your website to
Yep,
selling your actual
Yes,
stuff.
that's
that's
exactly
what
it.
I've been trying to
That's
literally say.
exactly it.
I
yeah.
I've been trying to interject in this conversation for the last few minutes, so I'm really, really glad that you
And
guys
I
got
was
to the
noticing it
exact
too,
point.
Victoria.
Thank you. I appreciate
No, no,
that.
no, Victoria. This was all my idea, Victoria.
Yeah,
Hi,
No,
I'd like to
okay,
make
but
I
a
wanted to
comment
add.
about the Second Life.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Um,
And
Victoria was speaking. What
so,
oh,
was it?
sorry, Victoria. Go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
thank you. I really, really have been dying to get this out. Um, and it's going to bring everything that we've just discussed together, from Sketchfab to Second Life to Shirley's original question about what do we think about virtual worlds. Well, we are very soon going to live in a physical digital world. It's just going to happen. I have been selling digital NFTs for a while, okay? And this is just the future. I mean, it's so easy now to create these assets, and it's so easy now to put them out in space. Like every few months the tools just become simpler and simpler and simpler. I myself, I'm building a WebXR multiverse, and I'm building it myself. I'm coding it in A-frame and 3JS. And this is becoming simpler to do now with Mozilla Hubs, which uses that same exact technology on their back end, but they've spun out a really, really nice and easy front end that's user friendly for people that don't want to get their hands enmeshed in code the way I do, you know? And these technologies are going to integrate so seamlessly into our lives. We're going to be able to play 6 degrees of freedom 3D games in our own space in AR. And the best part about it is that we could build it at runtime now, or we're going to very soon. And it's pretty freaking magical how Apple has been just kind of like slowly collecting all of these assets, slowly giving users these tools so that over time they keep refining it. And I'll bring up ARKit again. ARKit has been around for a while. Many people have used it. There's been a lot of upgrades and iterations. It's pretty great now compared to where it used to be. And again, Reality Composer, easy to put stuff in your apps. And the future of commerce is absolutely going to be physical digital, 100%. And again, that's why I'm building my virtual reality space in WebXR, where it's platform agnostic, and you could just get it up. It will be in AR as well. So you could buy these digital items and then you could wear them.
Victoria, are you there? Or am I not there?